we're excited to have Annie Delaney from Rayz Kidz with us. If you're just meeting, I'm Candy of experiencednanny.com. I have over 30 years experience in nannying and childcare with families around the world. On this channel, I share my advice, tips and experiences in childcare, as well as information from and by industry leaders. If this is something that interests you, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing the bell. This way, you'll be notified when I upload new content. Annie Delaney is the co-founder and CEO of Rayz Kidz, an app that is all-in-one tool for high-quality childcare and family management. She's a mum on a mission to improve the experience of childcare at home for parents, caregivers, and ultimately for children. She was so passionate about this, she left her 13-year career in corporate America, having worked for several years as a CPA at a public accounting firm, followed by a career at a large US beverage manufacturer in process improvement and the supply chain. After spending over a year designing and building the app, the Rayz Kidz app launched in May 2021, and Annie and the team have continued to expand on features that best service the nanny community, their employers, and their nanny kids. Annie resides outside of Boston with her children, 2 little girls ages 4 and 2, her husband, and her 30-pound rescue pup, Mikey.
So today with us are Yvonne Finnerty and Annie Delaney. Annie, why don't you tell us a little bit about Rayz Kidz and the app that you've created?
Sure, I'd be happy to, and thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you guys. So Rayz Kidz is a childcare app for parents and caregivers, and I created it out of my own personal need as a parent. I'm a mom of 2, almost 3, somewhat soon, and I found that when we transitioned to home care from daycare, that there were some things that were missing. And then when COVID hit, it became very obvious, I think as many things in the childcare world did, about the resources that are needed in the childcare world. And I felt like there was just something that we really lacked in the tools and resources for caregivers to be able to provide that high level care that they're looking for in an efficient way. And certainly the connection with the parents is really important, and something that in the home care environment has not always been focused on. We have the baby tracking apps and the daycare apps and things, but nothing really fits the need for a full family that goes beyond that baby age. And in the daycare apps, there's all sorts of other things that are included that you don't need in the home environment. So what we did is we took out all the things you don't need and put in the things that you do, and really tailored it to that home environment. And so what a nanny would need, an au pair would need, a family care provider would need. And so what we've done is made a communication portal for you to be able to more easily share the events of the day and what's going on in a way that's not intrusive, and one that is really approachable and in a means that parents are used to sort of receiving information now, and that's efficient for a caregiver. And then we've added in things like, of course, coupled that with photos, because you have to have photos in an accessible way, and be able to have an album of them as a parent is just so wonderful to be able to scroll back and see in a way that's outside of my text messages. And then we've added in things like scheduling tools and chat to make that organization of information a little bit easier, because obviously the kids have lots going on these days. And so keeping track of all of it and keeping conversations where they should be around childcare was one thing that we really wanted to do to help create that efficiency and organization. But the best thing, the thing that I love the most about the app is our activities. And so what we do is we try to bring educational, skill-based, hands-on activities to a caregiver to be able to facilitate easily at home. And we do that in a way that has the flexibility of Pinterest, but the educational base of a curriculum. And so for us, that's really important, to be able to grow and develop a child, and to be able to prepare a caregiver, or at least equip them with the resources that they need to be able to do that more easily than they could otherwise.
I love the idea of the activities, because I feel like if you're creative, you've always got ideas and you've got things that you want to do with your children. But if you're a little bit less creative, you're kind of always looking for something that you could do with your charge. I know I'm not super creative, and I was spending a lot of time on Pinterest when I was working as a nanny, just to get ideas and to actually get the instructions to walk me through the activities so that I could then share it with my charges. I don't know about you, Yvonne, but I know that's one side of nannying that I didn't really, enjoy that much.
I've always, well, a nanny for a very long time before we all had phones, but I've always taken pictures, sent it to the parents, always communicated during the day. Do you think that people will have to be trained to use the app, or because to me it's inherent? Like I love the idea of your structured activities. I also have a feeling, because I'm from old school, I know this is the way it's going to go, but if you can't think of them yourself, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about it sounds fantastic, but I still, if your nanny can't actually do that herself, that's I guess what I have a question with.
I think there are so many people where it is inherent, and that's a wonderful trait of a caregiver. For some, it isn't. And even if it is, I think there's always better ways of doing it. I mean, there's so much education out there about the different techniques, and whether it's Reggio Emilia or Montessori, or, there's all sorts of approaches that take years and years of education to really understand and be able to apply as an educator. And as a caregiver, to be able to see yourself as an educator and think that is part of your role. Well, what we're doing is we're just equipping you with those resources to be able to bring that without having to have a ton of the training and experience in doing it. But there are so many nannies that understand their kids so well and can do it naturally. You probably don't even know that you're doing the same approaches. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're equipping everyone with the ability to do that and show them exactly how to fully appreciate each like adult-led facilitated activity, and to really take advantage of those opportunities for learning for the kids. Because it's not just about an arts and crafts project, it's about what they're learning in the sensory and the creativity, and there's some sort of conceptual thing that they're probably learning about, whether it be wheels on a car or something. But there's so much learning that can be drawn out of a child, but you need to know how to do it well. And so
I like it. I think you've got that. The app sounds fantastic. I just think that perhaps that should be incorporated into training when you're training as a nanny. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That actually be a really good tool to have.
You're breaking up a little bit, Yvonne, again.
Oh no! It's Cape Cod Wi-Fi. I was saying it would be a great tool to have in training nannies, because I've done that before as well. A great tool to have to incorporate that into the training. I love the idea of it all being in one place, because there is so much information out there.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know the ages and stages? ASQ?
A bit. I can't say I'm an expert in it, but we hire experts, so that's the good thing.
It's a tool I just incorporated into training of nannies.
Yeah, I think the more training, the better. And whether that's in sort of a formal nature, or whether that's equipping people through doing, I think it's all part of the development and professional development of a nanny, professional development of family care provider and au pair, that we're helping people be able to speak the language and to do the things that we know are best in class. And to be able to have that on a platform and put it out in front of all of these people, I think is a wonderful opportunity for us, and something that certainly motivates us.
I think, going back a little bit to what you said, Yvonne, and what you said, Annie, for me, I know all the things that I want to do with children, and I know what it is that they need, but it's just having, for example, I'm able to teach math to children every day. It doesn't matter what we're doing, we have math around us, just like reading or writing. But it's coming up with the activity that will make it interesting.
It starts it.
Yes.
Right.
So I can have a conversation about, let's talk about shapes, and we can talk about the wheels on the car, and the mirror on the car, in the car, and all of that sort of stuff, and we can take it into a geometry lesson if we want. But it's, instead of it being dry, it's nice to be able to have somewhere where you can take a look and say, oh, what activity could I do to supplement what I've already talked to them about?
Yeah, that's really important. Yeah,
I think that's the part that I like. It's not necessarily knowing what I need to know. It's just looking for that specific activity that I want to target, because my children or my charges are learning X. And so I want to target that specific activity for them.
And it saves time from having to Google or the rabbit hole that is Pinterest, which is wonderful for many things. I love Pinterest in many ways, but
you can get lost in that.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think this is the way that we're going with the technology. So would you like? Can we talk a little bit about the technology side?
Yes, of course. Do you have a specific question you would like to ask, or?
No, well, this is obviously, you're one of very few, as far as I know, that have created this specific type of app. Do you see a lot more coming on board, and then it's going to be, maybe the bar will get lowered? So you're going to be like one of the top. You've done your research. But my concern with technology and anything is when you're flooded, the market's just flooded with, cheaper apps.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's an advantage of being a first mover, I think, is that you kind of get to set the tone for it.
Right.
And so when we're, grounded in our principles of really always having the child development focus being the priority, I think that is an advantage for us, because then we get to set that bar. Right. And you hope competitors come on, because it means you're doing something right.
No, I like that. There's nothing wrong with a bit of competition, is there?
Yeah. And it makes us continue to have to raise our bar to say, well, what sets us apart? What are we doing differently?
I like it. I like what you're saying. Yeah, very much.
Because the competitors that are out there now for this are Google, Pinterest, Instagram, curriculums, but they all have their pluses and minuses, and so we're serving the market, and we want to do it in the best way that we can with the authenticity and always the driver and the motivation of this is going to help a lot of kids out there, a lot of professionals be able to provide the best level of care that they can, and then ultimately the kids benefit from that.
And do you feel that parents or nannies or anybody really using the app feels like it takes away from the daily activities that the nannies should be doing with the children? Do you feel that parents are complaining about how much time the nannies are on the app?
It certainly is something that I've heard as a reservation, and I think naturally when you hear anything like about an app or about being on your phone, people are, nope, I don't want my nanny to be on their phone, or but I think it really depends on the tool that you're talking about. And to put to paint with a broad brush about technology and the use of it in childcare, I think does a disservice to so many of the advancements that could come from technology in the childcare and education world. So, I think it really to think about, well, what's the motivation behind that app, and what are they incentivized on? So we're a subscription-based service. So we're not motivated by how often you're on the app or how long you're on the app. We do have ads, but they're tiny, and it's just like for the sake of having a small ad on the free version. But we're really very much premium subscription focused, and that is for the purpose of making sure that we're focused on the right thing, which is that you get the value out of it that you need. And we specifically designed it to be used frequently, but in very small increments. So if you think about we're hyper focused on the user experience of how long does it take to communicate one event. And so it takes 2 clicks to log a bathroom trip, 2 clicks and a little bit of typing to log what they've eaten. 2 clicks to log how they've slept. So those are things that we're focused on in designing the app and continue to be focused on. But in the activities, it's one of the benefits of technology is if you think about the idea of going to Pinterest, you first have to find what you want, and then you go into it, and then you have to read a blog post generally to figure it out, and then get to directions, and they're all set up differently, right? But we have a uniform setup so that your eyes go right to the place where you need, whether it's the materials list, whether it's the directions of how you do it, whether it's the carousel of photos that show you exactly how to do it. It's meant to give it to you faster, so that you don't have to be on your phone as much.
Yeah.
And I expect you encourage feedback from parents and nanny or whoever's using the app. You're taking what they say in.
Oh, absolutely.
And I like that too. I mean, anything you do, you just have to keep up to date with what's happening, and
right.
It changes so quickly.
Right.
Do you feel like it's a generational thing as well? Like our generation probably isn't that interested in having an app, but the generations that are coming behind us or that are already behind us, they're all about apps. So do you think it's more a generational and a cultural thing, or do you think it's more that's the way we're going just because?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely hesitation from a generational standpoint because technology can be a little bit intimidating. And so just the idea of it, so it does take a little bit to convince someone that that might have that reservation to say, just try it. But it really is designed intentionally with like what I've learned in app development is that you have to be so careful about every button, every design, and really thoughtful about what is that going to lead the user through for their experience. And so, you hope you can get at least someone to the idea that just try it. But I do think that there's absolutely natural hesitation from people that are from an older generation about the idea of communicating in that way. And I think there's some pride too. Like, I've been doing it for 20 years in this way. Why do I need to change? And my thinking there is that a lot of the parents have changed their ways. And so we're used to being communicated to through text or through, we see like Instagram stories, and we see, many people use WhatsApp, and there's all sorts of, or Slack, there's all sorts of new advancements in the way that we're used to getting information. We're used to getting a lot of information, but we're used to getting it on demand when we want it, not being flooded with it. So whether people are using text right now, which is something that, of course I use text all the time, but I think there's a time and place for it. There's a time and place for Instagram. There's a time and place. And so there's a time and place for childcare related items. And keeping it all in the same place is wonderful. Keeping it so that you can set your own notifications and make it a really natural process to be able to communicate what's gone on during the day. Like, I'll see a bunch of updates because I get my notifications to my phone. I'll see a bunch of updates throughout the day. But I'll know that, those 8 notifications are things that I can look at when I want to. But if I see a text message, I look at that right away because I think there's a problem. And so that just differentiating those types of information, I'm very used to receiving it in that way. If I was flooded with text messages, that's just not the way that I'm used to operating anymore.
Yeah. I think.
What about the security aspect of it?
Sorry, say it again.
Security aspect of it. So you're communicating with just the parent, I'm assuming. So how could somebody hack in? See the photos, see where the child is at that time. I mean, that kind of things.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a silly question, but
no, I think it's a legitimate question in the childcare world. Like, we're super protective of the pictures of our kids. Like, I barely put any pictures of my own children out on any form of social media for that reason. So that's certainly a top priority for us. We use a database that is one of the most secure out there. And we only provide access to people who absolutely need it, which is like 2 developers and me. And so we're very specific in the access that we're giving. And we have security around like your password protection and things. So
like anything really, sometimes people get hacked on these the apps nowadays. So
Right.
I was just curious about how that worked.
Yeah, it's certainly a priority. I mean, I can say from personal experience on the idea of protecting my children's information. So it's something that we're very cognizant of, and I think we've designed it in a way that provides that security. And then we'll, as we continue to advance, if there's more things we can do, that's not a problem to put more in.
Right.
And you said it's a membership program. So what happens if, let's say, I upload all my pictures, my family uses it for 3 years, and now my children are at school, I don't need it anymore, I don't have a nanny. Do I lose all of that information because I'm no longer a member?
You can download it all. So all your pictures will stay. So even if you downgrade your subscription, you wouldn't be able to add more if you're over the free limit, but it would all still stay. And then you could download each of them. Okay. So you still have access to it. You still have access to all the data. That all remains.
Okay. And do you feel that people are concerned about that? Because it remains somewhere, right? So it remains on your database somewhere.
Yeah, you to comply with GDPR, the European restrictions around security, you have to have an ability to delete your account if you want. And so we do have that. So you can get rid of it. I would assume most people would want to keep it there.
Yes, exactly.
But you need the option. So yeah, we do have that option.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And how do you feel in general that technology affects childcare? So your app is there to facilitate childcare and to help childcare providers and families communicate. But in general, if we're not talking about your app, how do you feel that technology affects childcare?
It depends on what it is, because I think that there are some, and I can't say I'm an expert on this or I've studied it significantly, but like the electronic games and things, or the iPads. I know we're conscious of how much screen time we give to our kids. There are some great educational games and activities that are out there. I think there's a certain place and time for them. We've made the app so that it's not intended to be used by a child. Mm-hmm. It's meant to take the information from it and then use it with the child. And that's what I feel best about. But I do think the idea of no technology in childcare, because of the risks of what it could bring, again, maybe painting with too broad of a brush, because there are so many benefits that we've all gotten from technology. Why not bring it to the childcare space? But I think it needs to be done with the right intentions. And so I think being cognizant of it and intentional about how you utilize apps, whether it's for the child's use or for the caregiver's use, is very important, because at the end of the day, you want as much time with a caregiver and a child as you can, because there's so much that comes from that bonding, so much that comes from the opportunity for them to be in a role as an educator and to help that learning and development. And of course, free play is wonderful as well. But you do want that caregiver to be as accessible as they can, and you don't want them tied down to their phone.
Yeah. And do you feel that there are lots of families that I've encountered who say no screen time for my children? Mm-hmm. Do they resist technological apps? Obviously, the apps are technological, but do they resist apps for their caregivers, do you feel? Or is that not something that they even think about twice? It's just, we're going to use this app.
Yeah, I can't say that I know from personal experience a ton of people that are in that exact position, because usually they don't make it as far as getting to the app. But I do see I'm in a bunch of the nanny groups, and I've seen some comments about people who say that there's zero phone time allowed. And I as a human being, that's hard, and it just logically, but if there's an emergency, and the thing that doesn't make sense to me is, as a parent, I'm a relatively anxious parent probably, but I want to know what's going on during the day. I miss my kids so much when I'm not with them. And I feel like as a parent, you always have the responsibility of your children, whether they're in the care of someone else or not.
Right.
And so that responsibility is heavy. And so that that continuous flow of information is important as a parent to continue to feel good about the childcare decisions that you've made, and that the kids are okay when you're not with them. No matter how much you've screened, no matter how much experience that nanny has, you still want to know. Yeah, right. And just knowing that they made it to the farm yesterday, and knowing that, seeing the pictures of them picking flowers, like, it just made me feel like, okay, I know that they're okay. I can go back to doing what I need to do. So as a parent, it just seems a little bit not intuitive to me that you wouldn't want your caregiver to be communicating that during the day to you.
Yeah.
What about like grandparents? I mean, you'd have to kind of teach them that technology, wouldn't you? The app. So that I'm curious about, do you have training seminars? Do you do anything like that?
We haven't done training seminars, but it's been brought up before. So it's something I'm thinking about. To me, I want to make it as intuitive to use that you wouldn't need a training. So that's the ultimate goal. But if there is some benefit of it and people don't mind watching a 2 to 5 minute video, those are certainly easy.
I'm just thinking about the older generation again, like the grandmothers. You know, my mum's 86. She's got a phone, but she's always like, it's not working, which is not true. You're not working. So I'm just curious if you were going to expand and have the app for grandparents, which I think would be wonderful, that they could actually share that with you, there's a parent and the children. I just think that would be a really good idea. Yeah,
that's actually one of the things that when I created the app had front of mind because of our own family experience. So one of the things that I got frustrated about was that I would have to take the daycare apps and download the photos and then upload them to the photo sharing app that we have, or text them to family. And I wanted to be able to just automatically share. Like, I don't have time to take all that down and move it. So can I just add them to this app? And I wanted the parents to have control over who could see it versus the daycare app, who only the daycare has the power to do that. And so we have a family level within the invitations. So that my parents are on it, my in-laws are on it, my sisters, so everybody can see. So they only see the photos part of it. They don't see all of the sort of events of the day and the schedule and all that, but it does function as a photo sharing app for them, so that it's much quicker to be able to share in those memories.
That's good to know. And that's easy. If they don't have to do any input, they can just get photos sent to them. That's pretty good. I like that.
My 94-year-old grandmother has basically figured out how to use it. So,
that's a testament to how easy it is then.
Yes,
definitely.
Fantastic. All right. And I know the Department of Education has issued guidelines for the use of technology. And I thought they were quite interesting. So I'm just going to read them quickly. There are 4 guiding principles. The first one is technology, when used appropriately, can be a tool for learning, which I completely agree with, because I think, like you said, if it's used appropriately and with the right intentions, it actually can teach children a lot. Guiding principle number 2, technology should be used to increase access to learning opportunities for all children. And I think we go back to the intention. And so I think this one's great too. Technology may be used to strengthen relationships among parents, families, early educators, and young children. And then guiding principle number 4, technology is more effective for learning when adults and peers interact and co-view with young children. And I agree with all of them, to be honest. But I would like to focus more on guiding principle number 3, where the use of technology can strengthen relationships among parents, families, and early educators. How do you both feel about this statement as parents and educators?
I totally agree. I mean, so from a standpoint of confidence in your care, I think that's a big thing. Understanding what the child's doing and like having that confidence in the relationship. And I think there's a bond that's created that's really important between a caregiver and a parent, to be able to have that trusted collaborative care. And there's some information sharing that's necessary in order to get that to happen, right? But then there's also the sharing of observations that oftentimes, in a handoff process, whether it's the morning or the afternoon, and whether it's in a nanny setting, a family care setting, usually is quick, right? Like at least one party wants it to be quick. The other one might want it to be longer. But by nature, there's not a ton of information that can be passed in that. And so if you're able to communicate any concerns that you have, any observations that you have, anything that the parent can do to continue the development of the child at home, when building on what they're doing with the child, and I would think that they would take responsibility for that and look for that. I mean, I know that we certainly do look for opportunities to continue the development of our children, even on the weekends or at night, but being able to understand what that is and have the trained professional be the one to help to guide the parents. Some of that's going to be verbal, and some of that can be started at least in the app, or started at least in some form of technology. And then, the shared language that you're using. So most parents are not educators. Most of us don't appreciate the idea of education, but we don't really know what it means. Like, we barely know the difference between fine motor and gross motor, and understanding what each of those do and how you can help a child to be able to build those and what benefit they then get. So fine motor isn't just something for the sake of being able to play with Play-Doh. It's an essential building block to being able to write. And so if a parent understands that, they're much more willing to do something. And so being able to communicate in this shared language about child development and skill development and in certain domains, I think is really important to be able to continue that development beyond the time with the caregiver.
Yvonne, do you?
I think I think that's definitely a wonderful way to go, like letting the parents know what's happening during the day and photos and videos. I've been with children where the parents have been traveling, and those first steps and the first potty, that kind of thing, and you obviously share that with them. One of the things I thought that could be just a sort of touch point is that parents need to know also, and you as a parent, your caregiver cannot give 100% 12 hours during, you know what I mean? So I'm wondering if some parents are going to expect like all day long, every half an hour, that you're going to be on the whole time, when really to give your best, you're going to need a break as well. So that I think that sort of kind of education needs to be given to parents. You can't expect me 12 hours a day to be sending you stuff on this particular app or even on the phone. So do you get where I'm coming from there?
Yep. I think it's actually, if you look at it from a slightly different angle, if you don't communicate, the assumption, parents are going to fill in that assumption for themselves, which is, I think they weren't doing much, or like it's
funny because I get it, and I was on the plus side is for your own, as a caregiver, you want them to know that you're doing all these fabulous and wonderful things.
Totally. Right. Taking credit for what you're doing, you say making your invisible work visible, because it is very much an invisible nature of the value that you're providing. And so if you're documenting it and showing it, it really helps in being able to provide that parent with confidence. And then come time for performance reviews, like that, it's just a slam dunk because they've already seen all of it. You're not then presenting them with the information.
Right.
They've known about it all along.
So for me, it's slightly different, maybe because my experience have been a little bit different, but I worked as a rota nanny for a long time. And that means, you work a certain amount of time and then you switch with another nanny. But most of the parents I worked for were what I would say absent parents. So they weren't really involved in the education of their children or the upbringing of their children. So they would never have gone to the app, most likely. They would never have had the app. But the way I mean, the app would have been good to communicate with the other caregivers, obviously, so that they could see where we were, you know, what we were doing and what we'd achieved during our time on shift. But we had a different system that I had, you know, kind of put together. And we had, so at the end of each week, every nanny had to fill out this form, which was basically emotional, social, developmental, and we had to put in all the things that had happened during the week, so that then when we handed it over, the next person had it before they started their shift. So we would send it, you know, a couple of, maybe the day before the shift started, and you would have all the information. Let's say if you were potty training and you had 2 great days of potty training and 3 days of accidents, the person coming on shift would know exactly what had happened the previous week. And the parents weren't interested in having photos or weren't interested in seeing any of the activities that the children had been doing. So
bad, isn't it?
So it's, you know, it would have been useless with them, but it would have been a great tool for the nanny team.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's like hospitals, you know, when you I think they need an app now. I think everyone needs an app.
Yeah.
When you're handing over care to, I know you have it written down and it's all, but yeah, it should be, I think, yeah, I want one now. I think it's I think I've talked myself out of all of the negative stuff I was thinking.
So we've converted Yvonne.
Yes.
Check. So, yes. Conversion complete.
Conversion complete. Yes. Okay. Even with my terrible Wi-Fi. No, really fascinating. Really interesting.
So the last question before we go. So where do you see technology within the childcare industry going in the next few years? Because obviously you've done this huge job with Rayz Kidz, and we've talked about competition coming in, and then that means raising the standards. But where do you feel eventually we will go with technology in childcare?
I hope that it is for a lot of it for the professional development of a caregiver. I mean, I think that there's the wonderful part of the connected, I guess I'd say 2 parts then. The professional development of a caregiver to be able to have them be equipped with the resources that they need to provide care. And you know, obviously we have a huge problem with childcare here and the accessibility of it. And of course the quality of it comes into question too. And so we want to be able to affordably equip people to become the caregivers and educators that we really need them to be for our kids. And so that's what we're trying to do. I hope there's more tools out there that continue to provide that. And then to be able to have that bond with the parent and the caregiver so that you have this sort of caregiving unit that gives consistency of care, and that, you know, we can all benefit from being able to better understand each other. I think
the hardest part. Sorry to interrupt you, but it is the hardest part, isn't it?
Yeah, and you want to come together as a unit, and you're going to bring different experiences, and not to say that you have to agree on everything, but you need to be able to talk about them and have open communication about the type of care that you want for your child, or the type of care that's right for the child. And so the more that technology can bring together those caregiving units for consistency of care and to elevate the quality of care and to do it in an affordable manner, means that we can have more high quality care that's accessible.
Great, thank you. So if anybody wanted to check out your app, how do they do that?
Sure. So it's on the App Store and Google Play. Just search for Rayz Kidz, and it's RayzKidz.
Yep.
And you can go to our website, rayzkidz.com. It's plenty of information there and resources for further learning as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for joining today. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
I really enjoyed it, and learned something, which is, I always like to learn something, and I wish you all the best luck with it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was great.
Thank you.